Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are tackling a common painting problem, paint streaks and drips. It's a frustrating issue, but don't worry, we are going to break down the causes and show you how to eliminate them. First, let's talk about why these imperfections happen. One of the biggest culprits is applying too much paint. When you overload your brush or roller, it's much more likely to leave behind streaks and drips. Another common cause is using the wrong type of paint. Some paints are thicker than others, and thicker paints are more prone to streaking. Now, let's say you've already got those pesky streaks and drips. Don't panic. There are a few ways to fix them. If the paint is still wet, you can try to smooth it out with a clean brush or roller. Just be gentle and work in the direction of the grain of the wood. If the paint is dry, you can try sanding it down with fine grit sandpaper. But the best way to deal with paint streaks and drips is to prevent them in the first place. Here are a few tips. Use a good quality paintbrush or roller. Don't overload your brush or roller. Use the right type of paint for the job. Apply the paint in thin, even coats. Let each coat dry completely before applying the next. And there you have it. By understanding the causes of paint streaks and drips, and by following these simple tips, you can avoid them altogether. Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we are tackling a common painting problem, paint streaks and drips. We've all been there, right? You're excited about your fresh coat of paint, but then you see those pesky streaks and drips ruining your masterpiece. Don't worry, I'm here to help you eliminate and prevent those paint imperfections. First, let's talk about those old stains. If you're dealing with dried paint smudges, don't despair. There are a few ways to tackle them. For fresh paint, a damp cloth should do the trick. Just be sure to use a gentle touch, and avoid scrubbing too hard. For older stains, you might need a bit more muscle. Try using a paint scraper, or a putty knife to carefully remove the dried paint. If you're dealing with a stubborn stain, you can try using a paint thinner, or a solvent. Just be sure to test it on an inconspicuous area first to make sure it doesn't damage the surface. Now, let's dive into the secrets to a great result. The key to preventing streaks and drips is to use the right tools and techniques. First, make sure you're using a high-quality paintbrush or roller. A good brush will hold more paint and distribute it evenly, reducing the chances of streaks. When applying paint, use long, even strokes and avoid going over the same area multiple times. This will help to prevent the paint from building up and creating streaks. Another important factor is the consistency of your paint. If the paint is too thick, it's more likely to drip and create streaks. If it's too thin, it might not cover properly. The ideal consistency is a smooth, creamy texture that flows easily but doesn't drip. You can adjust the consistency of your paint by adding a little water or paint thinner. Just be sure to test it on a scrap piece of wood or cardboard first to make sure it's the right consistency. Now, let's talk about some other things to consider. The temperature and humidity can also affect the way paint dries. In hot and humid conditions, paint dries faster, which can lead to streaks and drips. If you're painting in these conditions, try to work in a shaded area and avoid painting in direct sunlight. You can also use a fan to help circulate the air and speed up the drying process. And finally, don't forget about the importance of preparation. Before you start painting, make sure to clean the surface thoroughly. This will help to ensure that the paint adheres properly and prevents streaks and drips. You should also use painter's tape to protect any areas that you don't want to paint. This will help to create clean lines and prevent paint from getting on areas that you don't want it to. So there you have it, folks. By following these tips, you can eliminate and prevent paint streaks and drips, ensuring a smooth and flawless finish every time. Remember, practice makes perfect, So don't be afraid to experiment and find what works best for you. And as always, if you have any questions or tips of your own, feel free to leave a comment below. Happy painting!